Greetings and welcome to In Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. We are here in a Railway Road, or it's Railway Street, but we're at Superior Deltones, and we are very happy to speak with the person at the helm of We Code Caribbean, Safiya Olugbala. Thank you for making the time, and we're very happy to not be doing this via Zoom.
Thank you so much for calling me and the invitation. I'm looking forward to our interview today.
And so I want to get the overview, but then I also heard that there's somebody else who actually came up with the idea. So you could do that in two tranches. Thanks.
Yes, so We Code Caribbean is managed by me, but it was really started by my now 7-year-old son, because I realized that he had a very different trajectory towards education and the future, and what he was interested in really didn't line up too closely with a more traditional syllabus and curriculum. So I decided that since one was not already created, that I would do what most mothers do and most women do, create. And so that is how We Code Caribbean came into being, and really surrounding the things that he was interested in and the very scientific world that he would be living in.
What is that process like? Because yes, you understand that the way that he's moving, the trajectory, as you say, is a little different. But then the traditional education system is the traditional education system. You can call it the status quo. Making the decision to step outside of that, what was that like for you?
It was a very radical shift, but it was one that I was very prepared to make in the interest of my child, and with the recognition as well that I was not the only mother who would have had that same type of mindset. Because we do live in the 21st century, and so education has to change in order to accommodate the world that we are living in. That is very automated, that is really run by a different system. And so it was a very easy decision for me to make, but at the same time, it was a very radical move away from the traditional.
What's the biggest difference?
The biggest difference I see is that freedom to be, that freedom to express, to understand that not every child is created the same, and that a child, yes, would need guidance, but they're also entitled to autonomy. And so education must reflect all of those things. And if a child is born with a particular gift and a particular desire to move in a direction, then education must support that child as much as it possibly can.
And so the person who says, but that your son not going to be as well-rounded because he won't be interacting with people the way that you would if he's in the school system.
Oh, we have spaces like this, right? We have spaces where he can interact with community, where he can build friendships and relationships. There are lots of spaces where children can be socialized, and then there are places where their education can be very personalized, right? And I wanted to build that, a more personalized curriculum for a child. And I thought to myself that if I could do that for one child, then I could do it for thousands of other children whose parents may not have the wherewithal to design and create curriculum, but definitely the children could benefit from something like that.
And I'm glad you led to that, because I want to ask, what is the process of scaling up? Because I'm sure everybody has their idiosyncrasies. They like it this way, possibly yellow instead of green, but making sure that it is something that could be specific, but also general. What was that process like, putting that together?
Yeah, so I have an incredible team of women that I work with. I cannot take credit for everything that occurs at We Code Caribbean. We have women who specialize in education. We have women who specialize in developing curricula that is very specific to the interest of the child. And right now we are in the process of launching a huge product that would allow many more children, tens and thousands of children to come on board and really tap into coding, tap into other aspects of education that really reflects that STEAM and STEM perspective, and so that they can benefit from a different approach to 21st century education.
All right, but explain that to me because it feels as though every time I blink, there's another letter.
Yeah.
So I remember STEM, and then STEAM with the inclusion of art, and then STREAM with the R, and then there's a STEAM FM.
Yes, so we included the FM because what we wanted to do was blinked, right? We added some more letters. So what we wanted to do was focus on STREAM because we do understand that the arts and agriculture is including in our program, but we also wanted young people to think about financial management. So that is what that FM is about, because we feel as if traditional education don't really focus or place on real emphasis on what a child is going to need to equip himself or herself properly to navigate the future. And financial management, financial literacy is a key component in our program, as well as an approach to mental health.
I see there are on a few occasions, both of us have spoken about what it is We Code Caribbean is doing versus the traditional system. Is there the opportunity to marry the two, or do you have to be in the traditional system or doing Stream FM with We Code Caribbean?
Yeah, so it can't be exclusive one against the next, right? I have been an educator for many years. I'm close to 50. So I have an intimate understanding of education and the curriculum. And I see so much value that is in traditional education. But what it needs to do is future-proof the curriculum so that it makes children future ready. And that is where We Code Caribbean comes in, so that we understand that there is a lot of importance in what the traditional system offers, but at the same time, and I know the Ministry of Education is making an attempt to move in a more STEAM-oriented direction, but limited resources, I can understand all of those things. So they need organizations like mine to come in and bridge that little gap that exists.
And speaking of bridging that gap, you've actually done work with the ministry, I believe?
Yes, I
What has that done been like?
So what we did in partnership with Digital Foundation is we put on a program that went to rural schools, 25 rural schools in Trinidad and Tobago, and we taught aspects of coding. We also looked at how we could introduce professional management so that students who were graduating from the system and entering secondary school, that they would understand how to write a resume, how to present themselves professionally, how to speak, how to do a handshake, dining etiquette, something that I feel that most children are losing because most people are looking at their TVs in front of their phones while they're eating and that type of thing. But having that confidence to navigate a social system is very important. So we look to make sure that we are focusing on that for our young people.
And is it a matter of, well, let me ask it differently. Who is this program for? Is it that you're looking at a certain level of a certain age, or is it that you're looking at a certain level of competence? Is it for primary school? And because you just spoke about making that transition from primary to secondary.
Yes.
So is there an ideal cohort?
Yes, so for us, we do look at kindergarten. We look at preschoolers because we feel as if that introduction to STEAM and STEM should happen at a much earlier age than what we prescribe now, which is at secondary school. What we want to do is to increase awareness so that it also increases the likelihood of children leaving primary school and entering secondary school and choosing those subjects that are available now in that STEAM field.
And lastly, before we take the break, what has some of the feedback been like with regard to people who have taken part in it, from the point of students, from the point of the ministry? You spoke about the Digital Foundation. What are they saying to you about the program?
Yeah, so We are very mindful that feedback and impact is important coming from the corporate sector, but for us, we are educators at heart. So we want to know what children feel, how they engage with our curriculum, how do they feel about our content. And as much as my face appears a lot on interviews, most impact comes when my son does his experiments when he is engaging with younger children. So a lot of parents would call me and ask me, how come I haven't seen a video released as yet from Sila for this week, because my children are at home and they also follow his experiments. They love to see other children excelling in the field. They feel very comfortable. They understand that if you see it, they can do it themselves. So they need to have those real world experiences, and that is what we want to deliver. We want every child to feel empowered. We want every parent to feel supported in whatever decision that they make. And we want children to understand that education is something that they can have control and autonomy in.
And with that, I think we take a short break. We are speaking with Safiya Olugbala. Stay with us. We return with more. Welcome back to In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. We are speaking with Safiya Olugbala of We Code Caribbean. Now you're going to be hearing pan in the background. If you didn't get it from the introduction, we are at the Siparia Deltones Panyard, or should I say steel orchestras. But the thing is though, we're speaking about We Code Caribbean. And just before we took the break, you were talking about how it is content is created. Is it that you try to have a season, or you do a raft of experiments and curate those before sharing it? What was that process like?
Yeah, so the process is really based around my son's current interest, and it varies and it changes very rapidly. And so I need to keep up with the things that he's interested in. So what I told him is that we can do pantry experiments. Nothing must cross $20, right? So all the materials that he uses for his experiments, we can find in the pantry, because it makes it a lot easier for other children who are looking on to replicate the experience and to join in the fun. So that is how we came up with the frugal scientist, because I'm the frugal, he's the scientist. Right? And that is what we do. So we want to develop a STEAM FM program that goes into secondary school, primary schools. And this show is going to take Amma the astronaut, my son, Amasila, and we are also going to be working with Dr. Camille Waldrop Alain, and we are using excerpts from her speech that she would have delivered, and we're doing a show where they will be able to experience these things so that children can learn that they too can be scientists and they too can explore STEM and STEAM as much as they can, and that is how we develop the content. They want to see his face on camera. They don't want to see me. I'm just there as an appendage or something like that, but they want to see a young person having these experiences and teaching them.
Well, when I heard We Code Caribbean, I thought it was much more along the lines of strictly coding. But it feels as though this is a sort of ecosystem that takes different people into consideration. Yes, the person who's learning, but also you spoke about being able to support caregivers, parents.
Yes.
How important is it to you that this holistic sort of inclusion?
Yeah, it's really important because we feel as if we are teaching children who already understand what coding is. So our real educational campaign is really around and based on parents, because that's the group we need to educate, because they're coming into a world that they don't understand. They're interacting with content that they've never heard before, right? So I always say children are digital natives. As soon as a child is born, we poke a phone in front of them and we take pictures and we send to parents and relatives abroad, right? So they're interacting with technology from the womb. They understand it. And we are digital dinosaurs because we don't clearly understand how it works. So that is where that education really takes place with older persons and the parents and the caregivers of children.
I like the fact that you talk about broadcasting and sending it elsewhere. It seems as though this is something that can be applied anywhere someone is. Have there been attempts to poach you?
So we don't want to give away a huge secret. We're going to be doing a phenomenal launch in the new year, and that will make sure that all children, any part of the Caribbean, can access our content anywhere in the world. But we want to make sure that we are always Caribbean people solving Caribbean problems, right? So we want to make sure that children within the Caribbean have access to this information, have access to our content, and that they can feel as if they are ready for the 21st century and participate in a digital economy.
All right, so you pump brakes on that a little bit. What about persons trying to get you out of areas like Siparia, possibly areas that are a little less urban, and saying, well, come and do it in town now? Has that happened? If so, what has been your response?
So this is home for me. I've grown up in a rural community. I'm back in a rural community. I understand the plight of parents who are in communities that are similar to mine. I have driven at least 2 hours to get to a school. And it was that far and remote that the staff had to give me money to put gas in my car because I'd run out of gas. And when I got there, they told me that the school had received one computer that was donated, and was the first time that those children had ever seen a computer. And so we need to understand how disenfranchised a lot of children are within the community that I live in, right? And this is why our focus is here. Our focus is with children who are denied access. For girls, that's a huge priority for us, to make sure that girls have access to STEM education, to make sure that they can now be very, very independent within this digital economy that they have to participate in.
It seems as though that's something that you're very mindful of and intentional with, because in terms of one, raising access, two, raising the profile, and you spoke of the women on your team, so that seems as though there's also a kind of thrust there. But you spoke about feedback, or we spoke about feedback, and you gave that nuance on the distinction between corporate and the people that you're serving. What about you? What goes through your mind after you go 2 hours and you find this place and you get to this school that has one computer and you see the difference that you're making? How does that make you feel?
So everybody knows that I'm a very emotional person, right? I would cry for commercials. So when I see children existing in this condition, it really just gives me a greater drive to ensure that our programs are reaching the ones who need it the most. It's not the people who have access to it already. It's children who need it the most and who are the ones who will excel. My son, by the age of 1, could communicate in Swahili, French, we did Yoruba, and then he could do sign language by 7 months and that kind of thing, right? And so his development was very rapid. Is he a brainchild? I'll say yes, because I'm his mom. But it's also because he had access to a particular brand of education that other children don't. And so I wanted to make sure that every child that I could impact could have the same experience and same educational outcomes. So it meant that I had to bring the education to them. I had to bring the awareness to them.
And with that in mind, individuals who are not part of those 25 schools in Trinidad and Tobago, who would like to be a part, seeing what this Stream FM has to deal with, how do they access some? Is it that there's some things that you would get, like modules or small pieces, snippets? How do people get onto this?
Wringing my arm to tell you what's coming.
I'm just asking you a question. Is there something that exists already in addition to what coming?
So we are about to launch a few publications for preschool coders, and we're also looking at publications for primary school coders so that they can have access to the information as well. And so when we do our grand launch, they can use these as materials that they can work in conjunction and concert with what we are about to launch. I think people probably figured it out already, right? Because you're giving so much information. But what we wanted to make sure of is not about profit. We would like investors to see the value in our work, but what is important to us and what we are most invested in is making sure that there is access to the information that we create for children. And we do not work as adults, we work as educators. We come down to the children's level. I have a 7-year-old. I'm pretty, I have a great understanding of what they're interested in. And so the content is very reflective of that type of interest at all levels that we engage.
Now, with that, I don't want to be accused of wringing your arm anymore, but I want to thank you for that insight. That access is a word that we've been using, opening the windows to the work that you're doing, and thank you for the work that you've been doing. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, this has been In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. We've been speaking with the person at the helm of We Code Caribbean, Safiya Olugbala. But on behalf of the entire team, thank you so much for joining us.